She promised me forever on our wedding day. So I put her affair on the big screen, canceled everything, and left her crying at the altar. My name is Daniel Carter, and I grew up in Ohio. I am 34 years old, and from the very beginning, my father instilled in me a principle that shaped everything about the way I lived. He always said one line, and he repeated it until it was etched into my bones. If you commit, you do not quit. That phrase stayed with me through every decision, every choice, and every promise I ever made. I believed loyalty, honesty, and keeping your word were the foundations of a life worth living. I worked hard, started a small business, saved diligently, and built a life that felt solid and respectable. When I met Emily Harper, I thought I had found the missing piece to that life. She was charismatic, the kind of person who drew people in effortlessly. Her presence made rooms livelier, and her smile was the kind that could disarm even the harshest stranger. We dated for 3 years, and though we had our arguments from time to time, most days were familiar, calm, and comfortable. I trusted her. I truly believed what we had was honest and real. 2 weeks before the wedding, that trust shattered. Tyler, a friend who looked like he was carrying a weight too heavy for him alone, handed me his phone. He couldn't look me in the eye as he did it. On the screen were messages between Emily and a man she claimed was just a work friend. The messages were not innocent. They were filled with late-night promises, meetings behind my back, and phrases that cut me deeper with each line I read. I went over them again and again, hoping somehow I had misread or misunderstood, but the truth was clear. Instead of exploding, I stayed quiet. I asked Emily small questions about her late nights and her so-called client meetings. Her answers were too smooth, too polished, as if they had been rehearsed long before I even suspected. The gap between what I read and what she said was too wide to ignore. And with every rehearsed response she gave me, I knew the truth even more deeply. She was living a lie, and I was about to be tied to it for the rest of my life. I thought about our families, about my mother sitting proudly in the front row, about friends traveling in to see us begin a future together. If Emily had been dishonest for months, then everyone was about to celebrate a version of her that was not real. I could not quietly carry that alone. Canceling in silence felt wrong. Hiding it felt like betrayal not just to myself, but to everyone who believed in us. I decided then that if the truth existed, it would be seen by all, not just me. So I went through the motions. I smiled for the photos, chose the music, sat at tastings, answered questions from relatives. On the outside, I was the groom everyone expected. On the inside, I was planning how to pull back the curtain on the biggest lie of my life. This wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. About refusing to start a marriage on a foundation of deceit. The morning of the wedding arrived with a strange brightness, the kind that weighs heavy because you know something monumental is about to happen. The church smelled of lilies, the guests filled the seats, and my mother sat in the front row with a tissue already clutched in her hand. Tyler gave me a look from across the room, a look that said he knew exactly what was coming, even if he couldn't put it into words. When Emily walked down the aisle, she looked like every bride in every movie, composed, elegant, smiling at everyone she passed. If you didn't know better, you'd think she was the picture of devotion. But I did know better, and I couldn't pretend. Her vows were beautiful. She promised forever, promised to stand by me in good and bad, promised to build a life together. The guests leaned forward, hanging onto every word. For a moment, it almost felt like I could let myself believe it again. But then I remembered the words from those late-night messages. He's boring but reliable. Just smile for the photos. I'll text you later. Those words hit me harder than any blow to the chest. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't shout. I didn't make a scene for drama's sake. I kept my voice calm, even. I spoke about truth, about how love without honesty was nothing more than performance. And then I did what I came to do. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the projector that had been set up for a wedding slideshow, and let the screen speak for me. At first, the guests thought they were about to see childhood photos or a montage of our relationship. But the first slide that appeared was a screenshot of her messages. The words appeared, growing larger on the screen above the altar for everyone to read. He's boring but reliable. Can't wait to sneak away after rehearsal. Just smile for the photos. The church fell silent. The kind of silence that feels like it's pressing against your skin. Faces that had been glowing with joy seconds earlier went pale. Emily's father leaned forward, squinting at the words, while my mother's hands dropped into her lap. One message rolled into another. The room shifted from celebration to shock in a matter of seconds. Emily turned to me, her face pale, her voice cracking. "Daniel, stop. Please, not here." I looked at her, my voice steady. "This is exactly where. Everyone you love is here. They deserve to know who you really are." Her tears fell, her hands trembled, but I didn't flinch. I said the words that ended it all. "I won't spend years living a lie. Consider this wedding cancelled. Everyone enjoy the open bar. It's already paid for." Gasps filled the room. Emily collapsed onto the steps near the altar, sobbing. Her maid of honor covered her mouth in shock. Guests whispered. Some argued. Some simply stared. And I walked down the aisle slowly, each step heavy but final. By the time I reached the doors, the buzz behind me sounded like a hive that had just been shaken. But I didn't look back. I pushed the doors open and stepped into the daylight. For the first time in weeks, my chest felt light. I loosened my tie, breathed the sharp air, and kept walking. Tyler found me minutes later, breathless but grinning. "Man, you just dropped a bomb no one will ever forget." I looked at him, my face calm. It wasn't about a scene. She was never going to be honest. So I did it for her. And that was the truth. I didn't leave as a husband. I left as a man who refused to live in deceit. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe for more. Truth always finds its way to the surface, and sometimes it's best shown on the biggest screen of all.